I think the hardest thing I've ever done is like function. Like I think I've seen a lot of stuff like that just for a lot of people would be like the end of the world for them. And I've seen people like around me just get like taken out. You just like not be the same anymore after like losing somebody or going through something. And I've just continued to, you know, try to be like do the right thing. And I think the right thing is just to like keep going. And it's hard. Like sometimes I like remember everything at once and I'm like, okay, like maybe life is like shit and it's just never gonna get better. But then a lot of the time I'm like, maybe life is good because it was shit for a long time. And now, like everything that good that happens is like such a blessing that like really good stuff can happen. Because if you just keep going and like don't give up, like it gets easier over time to bear and deal with. And like at first it was like, oh, like my dad, you know, my grandma dies, life gets messed up, dad leaves, mom has health struggles, on, you know, medication struggles, like drop out of high school. But it's like, you know, it's been like 5 years since that stuff was bad, and it's like you just keep going and it's hard, but it gets easier, and then eventually like there's not much that can challenge me, you know, in a lot of ways. Like you know, you become more able to just push through stuff, like just keep going and getting better. So I think the hardest thing is being normal. Like it's still hard. Growing up in New Haven was, I didn't know what like the outside world was like. It's like a lot of people there, we didn't have a lot of like money, like we didn't have a car, and I never went on a plane or like traveled. So to me it was like it was like just everything that I knew, and I didn't know like what a suburb was till I was like maybe in like 10th or 11th grade, and I like visited a friend, and I was like, oh, like people live in like houses that are far apart from each other, and like only it's just, you know, I like grew up in an apartment, and I knew about like murders and shit from a young age, and it was I just thought that was like normal life, but it was all right. Like it was all right for me, but I wouldn't want my kids to live there, basically. In New Haven, the average income is about $20,000 per person, which isn't very much. And it also is home to Yale University, which is the world's second or third richest university. And there's a big contrast between like the campus and the restaurants and the shops at the school versus like the restaurants and the shops where like normal townies would be. And in New Haven, it's pretty like underprivileged. Like the high school system graduation rate might be like less than 80%. I didn't graduate. But at the same time, you have people who are like connected to that world. And for me, it manifested as a lot of pressure and like shame, because I met people, like especially in high school, like I would meet kids who were there for like school programs, or maybe my friends were trying to go in or whatever. But for me, like there was no chance, like that was never gonna happen. And those people would kind of treat you like a monkey or like an alien. And, you know, they'd just be like, what's it like to not have been to Europe? Like, what's it like to not speak two languages? Like, what's it like to not like have all this stuff? I'm just like, I felt bad. Like, I felt like I was supposed to, and I think one of the big things that Yale students do is, you know, there's a lot of pressure on like academics to feel like they understand all the world's problems, and like they always have to have like a take or like a stance or an opinion on like politics or things that don't affect them. And like they'd all be like, you know, like we need to do this to fix poverty, we need to do this for democracy. And I'm like, bro, I just like want a job or like a car. And I felt like bad that I was concerned with material things a lot. Like I'd run into people who just they had no material concerns. Like, you know, their parents like come pick them up for winter break in like a big like Chevy Suburban, and they go back to some house like hundreds of miles away where they have like staff in their home or whatever. And like I'm just like one of my best friends was like the local crack dealer, and that was who I looked up to. And I would often like, especially because like you being white in a town that's like mostly black, like I would often like run into like Yale kids, and I always just felt like not good enough. Like I was supposed to care about the things I cared about, but ultimately I had to realize I had to like save myself from my surroundings. I feel like a lot of my life was defined by trying to get out of where I was. Or I greatly appreciate like a lot of the Black people who were around when I was younger, who showed me that like striving has like a meaningful end, and like family and stuff is really important. And I didn't learn that from white people for sure. Like I have like a lot of my white friends, like their parents will buy them a car and like send them to college and pay for it, and maybe like give them money for an apartment and stuff. But that's not quite, it's just not as common, because if you're working more like working class jobs, you just don't have money for that. And so people like turn maybe like to a teenager and realize that if you want to have like a normal life, there's something you have to achieve to get like a normal baseline life. And I was in that position as well. Like my parents didn't own a house, and we like moved around a lot because we couldn't, just like apartment to apartment. And I started to realize that that wasn't quite what I wanted, but the only other people around me who were looking at that were Black people. Like a lot of the white people I knew, was just not a big concern for them. So I just wasn't, like the people who inspired me to like improve my life were Black people, because they were also concerned with like improving their life and like going to college, getting a good job, buying property, like, you know, like moving up in the world. I learned that those lessons came from people in the Black community around me, not the white community. But I was like 12. My dad left forever, and he left for 6 years. And I have a younger brother. He's only like a year younger than me, but like I had to see everything that happened. My younger brother didn't really see. He has like a younger brother syndrome, where he wasn't quite paying as much attention as I was. And I realized that I had to like look out for people other than myself. And I think I've been doing that ever since, because I had to be concerned with, like, sometimes the lights would go off, and sometimes there wasn't really a lot of good food to eat. Like, you know, not the end of the world, but it doesn't really, I don't know. I ate corn dogs a lot. We ate corn dogs a lot at home. I don't really like corn dogs anymore, basically. And I realized that, you know, not only would that event, like, if you're 12 and suddenly you don't have a father around, you just realize that, like, you have to look out for not just yourself, but other people as well. And I think now the way that it changed me forever was I've looked out for a lot of people, and I'm very cognizant of not being unpredictable. And I'm also very cognizant of, like, being a good influence. Like I don't think like my mistakes are cool, and I don't think that, you know, like my vices are cool. I know that, like, I know wrong is wrong, because I felt like it was painful. And the way that it changed me forever, like moving forward, I think, is that I want to have kids and be a father and be someone who can make like a long-lasting impact on someone's life in like a positive way. But I've also paid for it. It affected me in a bad way, in ways as well. But I think I'm growing past it. So
How would you say it's like you've paid for it?
I don't have friends. Like, I'm 25. I don't have friends. I don't make friends. I'll say that. I have some old friends, but like I don't make friends anymore. And the big reason for that is when I moved out of my mom's place at 18, and I moved in with some friends, and like I was early on in like being an online figure and stuff, and I moved in with some people who were on that journey too, and I saw them like my brothers. Like, they were like my best friends ever. And my best friend at the time, like, he was going through it, and he had his own unique situation. Like, he came from the Caribbean, and or not, he didn't, but his parents did, and he had like dreams of being an artist and stuff, and his parents like hated him, so he was with me, and we did life, you know, just we like lived together, we got a job together and shared. And he was like kind of dragged down by his family, and Like one day he took a bunch of pills and like drank a bunch of gin at the house. And like I got home and he was like throwing up everywhere. And he was like basically about to die. And I had to, like I took him to the hospital and he had like alcohol poisoning. They kept him in the psych ward for a while. And like after that, he went home to, or he went like to live somewhere else in another state. And I like never made friends after that because I felt like you get close to somebody in a period of just a couple months, maybe like 2 years, and like it turns out that they don't love themselves the way that they need to, or they just don't take their own life like seriously, or they don't respect themselves and they're not going to respect you. And I ended up like losing my apartment that I lived in, and I had like a dark 2 years, like where just I felt like I wasn't gonna find success or like my own happiness. And the way that I fixed that was like just not, not getting close to people. Like I know a lot of people, but they don't know a lot about me. I've never even said this story like to really anybody since then. But I think a lot of that is probably because if you're raised in a home without stability or without people there who care about you, you're not going to know what you're supposed to do in those type of situations. So, I strongly desire to live like a healthy and consistent life. I think a lot of people around me, like as a kid, were very inconsistent, like drug addicts or bipolar disorder and stuff. And I'm not interested in like hearing about someone else's, demons basically. Unless and if you really matter to me, like it's my brother or my fiance, right? But like meeting a new person and having them turn out to be like a big mess and like inconsistent, that I think that damages you. And I think it's better to live without that. And I don't know, maybe being raised that way made me more attracted to those types of people. And so I try just not to, get too close to people like that anymore. I was with the same girl from when I was 18 till maybe 22, on and off, but I tried to save her life and shit, but she was always drinking. She would hit me. She was like, they wouldn't leave me alone. My dad I talked to him now, I saw him this morning and we talk and stuff, but he's a bit immature and he's old too. He's almost 80 years old and I'm 25, so he's pretty old. But he's immature and doesn't really get, he doesn't get my goals. Like, my goal is to have a family, make a lot of money, be appreciated for the things I can say, and be out there in life and do stuff. And he's more of very inside his head. But he used to be really angry and parents fight. Like, sometimes I'd have to call the cops on him, to get him to stop. And eventually, one day it was like if it's the fifth time it happens, the cops are gonna just take you. And they took him, and he didn't come back for 6 years. And I even lived with him again, and he was very helpful. And I think he made up for it in the way that he could. He paid my phone bill and stuff for a while. But I think I learned a lot from my dad, but it was mainly in seeing the consequence of how he lived his life and realizing that I didn't want those consequences to happen to me. And that was valuable, because I can thank him for that. I probably wouldn't be as motivated to live the right way if it wasn't for him. But it still hurts to, think about everything he did and disappearing and stuff. But, I visited him once in a while. I'd visit him every 2 years when he was gone. But yeah, it was tough. I try to be okay with it though, because the outcome is a valuable lesson for me. So I think my mom feels bad. She'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry that you had to go through that." And I'm like, it's okay. I learned a lot.
That's okay with.
I mean, I don't hating people is really bad for you. I don't know if you have anyone that you hate in your life.
Yeah.
I have a couple people who did stuff when I was a kid that was just a bad influence to me. And but I don't hate them because it's someone probably did something to them that was a bad influence to them. I never really liked drugs because I saw I liked drugs when I was a kid. And, And my mom she had medical problems when I was younger, and they put her on like prescription drugs, like the shit that like rappers take. Like she actually had to take them, but it did bad shit to her. Like she was like, but she would like fall asleep and shit like while driving and stuff when I was a kid, and so I never did drugs. I don't really drink either, but I think there are other vices. Like a vice is like anything that you know you shouldn't do that you do because it's comfortable. And I think some of my vices are like not telling people what I honestly think of myself or them, and that can damage relationships. And I think another vice is like ignoring people. Like, you know, like I have cousins or friends or family members and people I care about a lot, and like I'll let texts go unanswered for months. And I think another thing that like just for me, I think a vice is like it's comfortable for me to manage relationships poorly. And I think that's something that a lot of people do, but it's like harder to notice. And it's just, I'm trying to be better about that because, you know, you can't exactly have a family or be a good parent or a good brother or even a good friend if you just shut yourself off and like go, you know, days or weeks without talking to people that you know. I understand that that's not really the way to be because I've seen like, you know, my own dad like doesn't talk to me. So I've seen like how that can affect people, and, you know, I don't want to be like that. So that's a big thing for me.
You said like one of your vices is not being honest about like what you think about yourself. Or like what do you honestly think about yourself?
Well, I dropped out of high school, and like I grew up in a place like where my big role model when I was a teenager was like a crack dealer who I still care about to this day. And that's not like a good recipe, you know, for living a good life. Like my odds were like terrible. I worked as a janitor after dropping out, and that was like every day for like a year I would like clean toilets and shit. And you know, sometimes it's very comfortable for me to feel like I'm still in that situation. And like four years have passed, and I worked on a lot of projects. I've met a lot of interesting people. I've made a lot of money. I've been, you know, all over the world, and sometimes it's comfortable to feel like I'm like only like a couple weeks away from, I'm only a couple weeks out from that life that I had before. And that's like a comfort that I go back to all the time. Just feeling like I'm about to fail. Because all the time back then I was about to fail. Like if I didn't grind for a week, I could be living on the street or something, or just like it could be over for me. And there's like fear is like really comfortable, and anxiety, like if you live like that for long enough, you go back to it. Whenever you feel like something's not going right, I'm not like going up and then like, oh, something's bad for a week. It starts to feel like it's like right back to where it was like 4 years ago when I was like 20 years old and had nothing. And like I think it's a vice because you just start to rely on that as like the feeling that you know, and it's not good. It's not good. And I think a lot of people go through that, and a lot of people would do better to like remind themselves, and I would do better to remind myself that I've come really far. I know a lot more. I've done a lot more. I know, you know, maybe it's not a vice, but it is like it's a struggle that's comfortable, basically. It often feels like I'm always on to the next thing, and like a lot of the time it's like if I don't find the next thing right now, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be back to the beginning. I'll be back to zero. And sometimes I'm like not thinking from the place I'm in now. And for me, I think there's a comfort in that struggle that I was in, where there weren't a lot of, it couldn't have gotten really worse. Like it was a bad spot to be in. And I sometimes just go back to it. I'm just like feeling like, you know, shit could just be over at any moment. And that's something I need to get out of. But, you know, maybe it's gonna take longer, so we'll see. I don't think she would want me to call her a crack dealer. She's a very talented person, very smart, one of the smartest people I know. But, you know, I think that I always think of her as someone who, because of the circumstances we were in, was not able to live out the true potential that she had. and had to make some difficult choices because of it. And I looked up to her a lot and followed her lead in a lot of things. And it just reminds me that like certain people in the world failed her, and it failed me as well. And I think of her a lot in just terms of like, I'm very lucky, and like it's a reminder of like how close I got to not getting to the position I'm in now, that I was even in that position to begin with. I had a friend when I was a kid, and he was a little bit different. He was a little weird, and he was a little bit better off than me. Like, his parents were doing quite well, and they gave him stuff. Like, he had it good, and but he didn't appreciate it, and he was just like, he was always mad about something. Like, he was mad about like the government, he was mad about culture, mad about politics, and I eventually realized like this guy is not really going anywhere, and I just never really talked to him much again. We all, our whole friend group left him behind basically. He never got a job, he just couldn't start his life basically as an adult, and he was too mad, did too many drugs, dropped acid, fried his brain. But I think about like my own life, like bro, like my mom had a genetic back problem. She had 4 back surgeries. She has metal in every part of her spine. And then they gave her pills that ruined her life. Like, her personality was permanently changed by the pills, by the surgery. The surgeries didn't even take the pain away. And I think about like, the healthcare system, they could have done better. And it's turned out now that they could have offered her like a much less difficult treatment. It probably would have helped more. And she's actually having another surgery on Tuesday. It's not over yet. But I've tried to, like, I've managed that in a certain way. All this shit happened to my mom. Like, my mom was never around for me when I was a teenager, and because of the pain and the surgeries and stuff she had to go through. And at the end of my friend's story, he ended up like assaulting his parents and getting arrested, like taken to jail. And like, you could say like, oh, like his parents were these like rich white people who probably never paid attention to him or whatever. But it's like, bro, like, go get a job or something. Like, I don't really know, like, you get what you get in life. There isn't like, it's like fun to think about like an alternate timeline. It's fun to think about like the 4th dimension, but this is life. This is our life. It's my life is like maybe if I graduated high school and I went to a good university, I could have been like a lawyer, or I could have worked at, maybe now I'm 25, maybe I'd be working in AI or something, make a bunch of money. But like, I make YouTube videos. Like, it's not the most like honorable thing, but it's like, I want to be good at that. I want to be good at what I have. Like, I did originally want to go to, I wanted to go to UPenn. Like, I got an interview at 2 Ivies and stuff, and like, I really wanted to do something there, but it didn't work out. Like, I just didn't have enough money. Like, no one was there to like tell me what to do. And I have, that old friend, like, he was mad that like he wasn't like what he thought he should be. But I am what I am. Like, there isn't really another thing I should be.
What was like the process of like you like coming up?
Well, it was interesting because I think it was very painful, because I started to do YouTube videos, and no one watched them for like a year or two. And I was like a cashier at a grocery store, finishing high school, dropped out of high school. I ended up going to community college for a little bit. Didn't do well there, but I kept doing these videos, and it was just like a lot of consistency. And at the time, this is like right before COVID, so there wasn't really a blueprint. Influencers weren't making that much money, shit like that. So I was just like, I love videos, and I just kept making videos, and eventually, like, they started to get 1 million views, and I was like, okay, like, this is cool. But there was a lot of pain associated with that, because I didn't know anything. Like, if you're a high school dropout making video essays or documentaries or interviews, like, people are going to criticize everything. People criticize my voice, people criticize my face, they criticize my clothes. I would find like forum posts on me being like, oh, I hate how Volksgeist dresses in his Instagram. And like, people would be like, yo, I hate it too. And I'm like, what the fuck? There's like 20 people that fucking hate me online. Like, and it was like a lot, bro. Like, even like other influencers or figures like Jay Versace would post about me, be like, fucking hate Volksgeist videos. I don't know if you know Jay Versace. He was like a Viner, and I was even too young for that. But then he produced a bunch of songs for SZA. Like, he pivoted to be a producer. He was successful, bro. And you just hated me. And I'm like, damn, what the fuck is going on here? And I think that affected me negatively in a lot of ways. Like, I lived in Philly because that's where I lived with my friends, and they were down bad and stuff. But I was like broke. Like I was like influencer getting a million views, but like broke. I was only making like $3,000 or $4,000 a month, which is like enough to live, but you're not living like a great life. And you know, we lived in like a rough ass area, man. And like I would be like on YouTube, I could like live stream and get like 200 concurrent viewers, which is like a lot for me, like in 2021 or whatever. And go out of the house, and like my neighbor had like shot my other neighbor in the leg. My neighbors had a nightclub in their apartment, like a speakeasy, like a real speakeasy, like illegal. And people would like come and like start a beef, like at the party, and then shoot each other outside. And that was like only one of many things. And like someone crashed a car into my house while I was recording a video. Someone stole a car, drove it fast as fuck down my little street, and they like shot out the window to do a drive-by at someone's house, and then the guy shot back. Like he hit the car, they crashed it into my front steps, and you know, like at that point I was like, I need to actually make a real come up, because I'm like making videos, like not getting a lot of recognition, and because I didn't prioritize, like I didn't know, like my family is not really, they're not just not well off. Like I'm like, oh, I'm a YouTuber, I make like 3,000 or 4,000 a month. Like no one around me, that was good for people around me. So like people around me were like, you know, just working like service jobs or like the most basic 9-to-5 jobs. So I was like, oh, that's good. But then I was like, why? People are getting shot around me. Like that's probably not, I should probably look for more. And then after that, I locked in. I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this to a business. And eventually I was able to like hire my brother to work with me. My little brother works for me. I'm able to, like, my fiance doesn't have to work. Like I'm able to give money to people who need it and stuff. And that took like, that was about 3 years ago I was living like that. So damn, that's not long. Yeah, 3 years ago I was living like that, and I was like, okay, I have to make a change, and like I was able to leave that behind eventually. But like I feel bad for like people I left behind and stuff. And one of my friends from Philly is like still, and he's like in the streets there, and I think I'm lucky because I'm white, so like it's easy for me to like, I could go be in that situation because I had to be. But then if I leave, like there's like emotional baggage where like I always look over my shoulder. I'm always concerned with like feeling like I'm still in that world or still in that position. But like I'm not, like I could never, because I'm white, I couldn't get like embroiled in it enough for it to be a huge problem for me. So I'm able to like move on and just do whatever. But I still carry that like responsibility that I can't ever let that happen to me again, basically. And that was come up. I mean, that wasn't really related to social media, but that was pretty much like a come up for me. Yeah, was dealing with that stuff and realizing I had to work a lot harder and get out of it. I dropped out of high school because like I felt really like I wasn't gonna be able to get to college, and I didn't have money to even like really pay for like applications and stuff, and then let alone like even know the process of applying for loans, and then like thinking about going to a school, like it was too much money. I just didn't have money for that. And like basically I was just like, if I finish high school and try to get a job with just a high school degree, that's not a life I want to live. I don't want to be a mechanic. I don't want to be like a waiter. Like, I don't know, right? Like, no offense to people who have to do that. Now I was a janitor for a long time, but I was like, I'm not going to stop there. So I made the bet that if I spent the last year working on my YouTube channel instead, that I could make something that was way better than I could get with just high school. So it paid off. Like the bet paid off. There was a lot of fear. Like people would be telling me like, that's not a good life choice. That's not a good life choice. Like there's a bad path. And it was kind of bad. Like I was down terrible for a while and had to do like jobs and shit I didn't want to do. Like it paid off with like, and I think if I finished high school and got a regular job, I would have gotten a little bit probably like lazy. And it doesn't matter if I'm like smart or think I'm smart or if I know a lot of things, like it's about what you do. And I did what I said I was going to do, and it paid off. And, you know, it took a while, but it paid off. And I spent that time I would have been in college otherwise, teaching myself YouTube and content creation. And it ended up making me a lot more money than I would have made. Like, even with the bachelor's degree, I probably couldn't make the money. So, you know, it was definitely like, it was a painful experience. I think it set me apart from like, because like when people like reject you, and like even my friends would be like, oh, like that's so dumb, like you're gonna be a bum or whatever, or you know, like family members and shit. And like, but I was just like, I don't really have an option, because if I can't go to college, you know, what else is there for me? It seemed like a good bet, and it paid off. So, you know, I wouldn't recommend though. it was painful for like a long time. I was 19. No, at the time I was a janitor. I had an uncle, like he lived in public housing his whole life, and he was really smart, and like he read a lot of books, and he was like, he was big into the Bible, and like he was a smart and nice guy, but he was just like different. Like he couldn't really function super well, like ever. Like even he had kids, and they ended up getting taken away from him. He couldn't drive, and I think the story was that he like took a bunch of acid when he was young, and it like fried his brain. Like he was like your age. He dropped acid like way too many times, and he just like went kaput basically or whatever. So he just kind of lived like a small life. Like he lived in an apartment and just kind of like walked around. Like people knew him, and you know, like one day he like disappeared, and they like looked for him, and the trail went cold because a cop had stopped him, and he seemed to be having like kind of an episode. Like maybe he didn't take his meds, and he broke into someone's house and was trying to like show them the Bible at like midnight in this random person's house. And it was like 30 miles from where he lived. So it was like he walked like 30 miles to get there. Like no one knew how. And the cop let him go. The cop like didn't ask him who he was, didn't ask to see ID. And he was never seen after that. And he was gone for like a long time. Like they did, like his daughters they're like adults, and they tried to like do like fundraisers or whatever, like events, like searching. And they got the support of like politicians and people in the community or whatever, but he's like could not find him. They searched everywhere. And he ended up like a year and a half later, he was found in the woods. Like his like skeleton was found in the woods, like probably like 20 miles from where the cop left him. So it didn't really make sense. Like where he was last seen was like not a great area. Like people would be around there at night, and like maybe they thought maybe like he got into someone's car that he didn't know, and maybe they like were like a drug dealer or something and like just killed him. Like no one knows. No one has any idea. He was just found with his Bible. They knew it was him because like the clothes, but there wasn't really a person there. Like basically, I'm sure like a deer ate him or something. He's just found in the woods, like in the middle of nowhere, not like very far from where he was seen. The saddest I've ever done. Sometimes I think about my mother. I think about like my mother was really smart as well, and she had her own business, kind of like me. Like she would actually hire like her brothers and stuff to do work for her, and she made a lot of money when she was younger. And you know, I think like her father left when she was young, and like he left and like moved to England, never saw her again. And I think that messed with her head a little bit and made her feel bad about herself, maybe. And you know, despite her trying like hard, and you know, she was like fashionable, like she was kind of cool, like in the 90s. She was like a cool person, and like she just worked hard and stuff. But eventually, she like married my father. He probably wasn't the right guy, and then she like had medical problems and had to have back surgeries. And I think about like, you know, she still raised me. Like, there's a lot of things that she let happen to me that maybe she shouldn't have, like with my dad and stuff. But like, she did a great job and made me like able to think well, and I'm able to think through my problems and like solve them. But I think about her and like the person that she should have been, and I'm like, you know, she had me, and the consequence of that was being with a bad guy, and then she couldn't really get out of the situation because she had bad luck with medical issues. And I'm like, she like should have married like a nice guy, like a rich guy who worked hard like her, and someone who could like give back to her when she had trouble instead of leaving her alone. And I just think about like a world where she could be exactly who she wants to be. Like she was in a band, she liked to travel. She can't do those things anymore, and she doesn't have anyone to do it with either. And I would like to, you know, reach a point where I can put an end to that story, because it makes me really sad. Like it bothers me that I know that she's out there. Like I don't see her often. Like I don't see her often at all, but she's out there. Like she deserved to have like a, you know, a good life where she could like just live the way she wants to, but she doesn't. And that just, it gets at me. But my goal in life is to like work enough and create enough things where I can be like, look, like mom, here's a car, here's a house, like I'll take you to Europe, like we'll do whatever. And you know, she can like open up to the outside world again. But I think a lot of that stuff, like, it put her inside basically. She doesn't have a lot of like social connections, and she's a little bit disabled, and so that makes me sad that like that person who sacrificed all that for me basically is not living the way that they deserve. And I'm trying to find a way to like put write a new ending for that. She's still young, and she's got another like 20 or 30 years where she could enjoy and do things that she wants to do. So I'm trying to give her that, you know, to make it not as sad, because I don't want it to be sad forever, basically. You know.
Do you talk to her often?
Probably every other day. I just saw her for the first time in 6 months yesterday.
Really? Why?
I gone up to New Haven. I hadn't been there in 6 months, so I got to see her and talk to her every other day. And she's very supportive. Like she cares about me. She cares about my fiance, and she like watches all my videos. And then sometimes she reads me the comments on my videos. She'll be like, you know, someone left you a hateful comment. I'm like, yeah, I know. Don't talk to me about it. But even like the fact that she cares so much to like read my comments and shit is like, I'm like, you deserve more than, you know, living in a crappy area, a crappy apartment. Like she deserves like a good life, you know. And I feel bad for her that she got stuck in that position just because she wanted a family. And it sucks, and some of it is her choices. But it's sad that, like, you know, as a man, like, I feel like I have to look after my fiance and make sure that nothing bad happens to her. And my dad didn't do that for my mom. And so that's a sad thing. Is like, you know, she deserves someone to like look out for her, you know. And that does make me sad in a lot of ways. Yeah.